Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of DirectConnect. I'm here today, Stacy Bresler, and we have Nick Weber here. We're excited to talk to you today about something that both Nick and I did over the last few days here. We were participatory in a great community of people, Veterans in Energy. It's a organization that has really built its mission around helping veterans who are leaving the military forces services to come into the energy sector, where we all know that we are in the energy sector really looking for great talent. And this is a great connection and resource. And we heard a number of things that were really exciting, and we'd like to share that with you guys. And I'll start, Nick, maybe kick that off and just, what are the things that you were hearing that, really kind of stood out and things that other people in the energy sector should know about?
I think the ones that really jumped out at me were all the different placement opportunities, both from the Archer side of going out looking for talent, but also folks I know who are in the military and looking to transition out. Honestly, one of the advices I give to people who are asking about going into the military is figure out what you want out of it, have your exit plan before you start. So even if you've got a high school kid that thinks they want to go to the military and then go check out jobs afterwards, kind of help them tee that up. One of the ones that really jumped out that I got to look a lot more into was Skill Bridge. So basically, DoD will pay somebody who's transitioning out their base salary for 6 months to go do an internship out in the private sector. So as an employer or job creator, you get 6 months of free labor and a test drive of somebody you think might be a good fit. Doesn't cost you a dime other than the time it takes to get them spun up and work with them.
That was a really
That's
cool
just
program.
a huge win.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gigantic. And I don't know how many utilities know about that option, but a lot of that information is on the website, the veteransinenergy.org. Fantastic resource for all kinds of things like what Nick was just talking about, those programs. But another thing I heard, Nick, that they were talking about was what, the electric utilities can do internally about talking about the skills and qualifications that veterans come to bear. And it really hit me hard when it had a couple generals that were doing some of these keynote speakers, but they hit on the thing that if you've gone through the military, you spend any quality time there, honorably discharged after 10 years of service or 15 years of service or even 20 plus. You have got a dedicated, loyal person that knows how to get something done. And that's, to me, 90% of an employee's, value to a corporation is somebody that can really do work and they have that mental aptitude in order to succeed. And it's built in, ingrained into them. And so here's a great resource, a body of people that are coming out of the military that are readily available. I think I heard a number, correct me, Nick, if I'm wrong, that there's almost 250,000 veterans leaving the services every year. I think it was something in that space. Maybe it could have been more,
That
but huge
that
body of
feels
people.
that feels a little high, but I guess if you're bringing in the reserve component, that'd be right. But I think the total service is like 500,000. So not sure I buy that one completely, but it
Well,
is pretty high and it's continuous. And obviously, the better the economy is, the more likely people are to get out and go test the economy. But there's always people who are winding down their time in service. And yeah, that reminded me of just kind of. I remember a conversation I had with Brent back when he was my boss at WEC, and we had an intern who was struggling, and Brent was kind of coaching me and said, "Well, what were you doing when you were 23 that was so important?" I said, "I was leading a platoon in Iraq." He goes, "Well, you don't count." But you have people who bring that skill set. I mean, you might get somebody who's 25 years old who's been in charge of $20 million on a property book and run combat operations with not a whole lot of oversight. Show me the degree program or the job program that creates that.
Yeah,
and that ability
absolutely.
to just get things done, like you said.
Absolutely. And while you were talking, Nick, I went and looked it up. I had an extra zero on my thing. It's closer to 25,000 leaving and retiring the military services each year. So that's still a great body of highly talented and qualified individuals at
Yeah,
you can look at for the various positions in the energy sector. And to me there's a direct link too to a number of the jobs in the military. Security is huge now in the utility in the armed services, of course, but cybersecurity is big as well, and that can directly relate back to what we're really one of the top priorities in the energy sector is security. So if you're in that discipline in the military, easy transition over to a utility. But some of the other positions that anything regarding leadership, that leadership role is desperately needed in the energy sector.
yeah. In the military, once you get past about 2 to 3 years, you're in charge of something, so you have that leadership experience. Nobody gets out of it without leadership experience. And the cyber piece, I think, was really interesting because that's where I wound down my career in Army Reserve Cyber, and I thought I went in knowing there's enough cyber to be dangerous, but I was around a lot of the U.S. CERT, ICS CERT folks, kind of the heavy hitters that all hang out in Idaho National Labs, all those folks. Um, the guys on my team there, on our dynamic defense team and our entire network defense program, they could hang. Uh,
Yep.
they were extremely, like you said, dedicated, talented, but they also figured out how to take people and train them how to get into cyber, having the operational background. That was how I got in there,
Hmm.
was because I could run operations. Um, the other piece that jumped out that really just seemed like a no-brainer to me, but we heard it a lot this week, was the ability to follow a procedure, write a procedure,
Mm.
incorporate safety into everything, do risk analysis on the fly. Those are all things that it seems counterintuitive that when you're in combat that you're not even worried about those things, but you absolutely are. I mean, my biggest fear when I was a platoon in Iraq was losing one of my soldiers. Even bigger was because I did something stupid. So being able to just inherently bake in that risk assessment and safety into everything you do, whether it's like we see walking around the office, we have our safety briefs in our industry for everything. Slips, trips, falls, everybody kind of jokes about it, but you think about those all the way up to whether you're working with doing hotline work on a line or you're out doing combat operations, running a movement to contact in Baghdad. You're still thinking through how do I mitigate the risk, give me the best chance of success to be safe, get the job
Hmm.
done, and get everybody home. That's
Yeah.
another thing that, again, your average 23, 24-year old, they're still figuring out how to do risk analysis as their brain's developing. Somebody's got 5, 6 years of it. They walk through your
Abs-
door with that experience. That's impressive.
It is impressive, and you hit on something that was big. That checklist, that transactional approach to doing your job is really fits into the energy sector. That's what we do. The energy sector is very transactional, very checklist, very procedural based. You got a talent of people from the military services coming out and already have that baked into the way they think, and so those ties are perfect there. So, what would you say to somebody, Nick? Let's say I've got 15 years in the Navy. I'm ready to leave. I've done my service, and I'm looking at getting a regular job. What should I do? What resources are for me out there and especially in the energy sector?
I think the first one is to start reaching out to folks who've made that transition, whether it's through Veterans in Energy or hitting LinkedIn, find somebody you know, a friend of a friend, and then have them help with getting your resume put together. That was the hardest thing for me, was trying to take all the things I'd done in the military that are in military jargon, and I could throw out all the buzzwords, and it would go to an HR person who had no idea what it meant and just said, "Oh, this person's not a fit." And I was very fortunate in some of my transition. I was in the National Guard and the Reserve, so one of the panelists at the end of the day yesterday made the comment that when you're in that position, you're always in transition, and she was absolutely right. So I went through it a few times. One of the ones that was probably the most, it didn't work out as far as finding a job, but it was set me up huge for follow on, was working with a headhunter that works with the military specifics. So they helped me figure out how to interview because I hadn't interviewed since I was in college interviewing for a job at either Arby's or the mall or whatever it was, some of those ones. So having a professional interview, writing a resume that makes sense, writing a cover letter, things you don't do in the military because everything is, the personnel system is very different. You have your ratings and you know people and you're on kind of a career path that you manage to a degree, but not anything like private sector. But what about
Yeah,
you? What would you recommend?
I think those are great things. That resume building, that getting yourself ready to go through interviews, something that you haven't done, forever, or maybe not at all. You joined the military when you're in your teens, right out of high school, and you put your 20 years in. You may not have even done any of these things, and getting some professional services to help you with that is a really good start. Practice those things, practice the interviews, get to know what the culture is of your target job. I think that's really important. Do some research, and in today's world, we got the Google, right? We got the ability to do quite a bit of research. So there's almost no excuse for not doing that, and knowing the company that you're going to go interview with. Do some research so you know who they are and what they're about. Back in my day, um, goodness sakes, we didn't have the internet, so I didn't. I didn't have any of those things, and now I'm dating myself. We also didn't have these wonderful resources either. When I came out of the military, it was like bye, and that was it. Today there's quite a few resources in the military itself that are helping you transition, and then outside you got like Veterans and Energy, and you have even companies have HR departments that specialize in talking and working with military servicemen. So take advantage of everything that's out there for you, and yeah, I think it'll really help.
To
It,
flip it, what would you say from the employer side to help bring veterans in?
mm,
That was one of the
yeah,
things I looked at. I kept thinking through Archer, we're fairly small. How do we do this? Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things that we can do, and I think we're going to talk about this later, Nick, as partners of the company, is we could build some education opportunities for the military servicemen, so they understand a little bit about, what, for example, security looks like in the energy sector. What are those disciplines? What are those regulatory stratas that you have to think about? So we can give them some base knowledge so they can make a informed decision whether that's something they want to do. Right? It's one thing to say I did security for the Air Force and I was doing all this, to transitioning that into I'm doing security now for a very small corporation in Biloxi, Mississippi. I don't know why I picked that. Probably because that's Air Force Base. That's ingrained in me. But it does take, I'm working things at a macro level, and here's a micro level perspective, and I think that's something we can, as an employer, provide that information back to the servicemen, so they can make some decisions. Yeah, I think we're kind of up to time here. Nick, any parting words?
I would say the big one is kind of I'm gonna go two sides with this one. If you're looking to transition the energy sector, absolutely reach out, get involved with veterans in energy. I'd say reach out to us. I'm happy to talk to anyone.
Absolutely.
Even if you know somebody, you got a kid who's willing to go wanting to go into the military, have that discussion of here's some of the things you can do with it. And then on the employer side, if you don't understand the resume from somebody who's transitioning out, find somebody who does.
Hmm.
One of the skill sets that I was very fortunate to have my very first job in the military. I'm gonna throw my hat on, my, my cavalry, my Stetson from when I was in the 11th ACR. Doesn't fit over the headphones, but my job was to essentially command a motorized rifle company, mimic a Soviet era offshoot army, very similar to what we're seeing in Ukraine right now, and break the U.S. Army. So I got to go. Here's all the doctrine you're going to have. Now you figure out how to use it against them. So really, it was a total. I didn't realize it until I was my master's program. Tolerance for ambiguity. It was, hey, here's a blank slate and a great big desert, and you've got two tanks and three Bradleys. Go tear stuff up. Man, that lab, that canvas, the learning experience was phenomenal. Which now I have transitioned into. That's how I run all my SIP 14 stuff. To take all those lessons learned. It's basic infantry tactics basic intelligence stuff that I learned, again, when I was 22, 23, 24 years old. But it was really hard to explain that to somebody who hadn't done it. Like when I say
Right.
OP4, if you haven't been in the military, that means nothing. Uh, Trying to
Yep.
explain two tanks, three Bradleys to an HR person, they don't know what that means. So
Absolutely. I think
try
that's,
to learn those things, get involved, bring somebody in to help if you need it.
yep. Yeah. And if you're a recruiter or an HR person in your energy company, look at that serviceman's resume another time. Give it a second chance. Read through it. These are good people, and you are getting somebody that's going to be loyal to your organization, and they'll fit in great. Give them a chance, and that's all we ask. And appreciate everyone who's listened to this podcast. Nick and I have served our time with the in the military, and we would never. I had a tough time through it, but I would always do it again. I would really love to repeat that experience. It is something like nothing else, and the friends and camaraderie you make is genuine, and these are the kind of people you want in your organization. So we're really encouraging veterans in the energy sector. So thank you, everyone. We will be back with another episode here soon, and have a great day.
If you know of a topic or someone you think we should talk to on Direct Connect, please let us know in the comments below.